physical matter purposely into a different form, which is something that in our Western mind doesn't really sound possible. This is a man who is a very interesting human being. His name is Prince Ratu Pandiji Pandita. He is descended from a line of kings that is unbroken for 12 generations. He is also descended from a man who transformed himself into a body of light in 1663 in front of his entire court. This man is recognized, the Prince Pandita, as a direct emanation of his great, etc. grandfather, Prince Pandiji Sakti. And he is one of the ruling families in Indonesia at this time. He is also recognized as a Maitreya, or a direct emanation. Anybody know what a direct emanation is? Now, this is a man who transformed himself into light. So why is he back? How does that occur? Yes? Just one second.
He's an incarnation to come back as a bodhisattva.
Okay.
Decided to take back the physical form to continue the teachings.
A direct emanation is somewhat different than a direct incarnation. An emanation occurs when a being who is transformed or become enlightened decides to come back for a specific purpose. This man's purpose is to come back and teach people how to transform themselves. This is what he teaches. And he's been recognized as a master in doing this. So, let's look at our general theory. There exists some evidence that points to a certain primordial lineage of human beings. The human beings can transform themselves into something that's beyond just the physical body, and that this matrix can be transcended by certain techniques, and that there is a spiritual world that once a human transforms, that they can potentially go into this world and live in a certain higher reality. So what is this spiritual world? What are the forces that govern this spiritual world? And how can human beings take advantage of these forces? And how may the primordial state be achieved by ordinary physical human beings? Now, one of the reasons I'm interested in this research is because I had contact when I was a resident with one of these primordial beings. And I wrote about it in a book called The Living Soul. And in the book, I describe a story. And in the story, I talk about my contact with a being who called himself Dajanti. I'd never heard that word before. And I was a second-year resident in psychiatry. And in your psychiatry residency, you stay up anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week doing what we call being on call. And when you're on call, you can go in on a Monday and not go home and get any sleep until Wednesday. And so I thought that I was hallucinating out of being fatigued and just not getting enough sleep and getting enough rest. One of the things that happened during my contact with this being is I learned that this being had another name. The other name this being had was Thoth. Has everybody heard that name before? T-H-O-T-H? Now, as a doctor, I had a lot of trouble with talking with beings from other dimensions. As a psychiatrist, I couldn't really discuss it with my colleagues. But there were some patients I could talk to about it. There's one story I write about in the book about a man. I was on call one night. His name was, it was not his real name, but I called him Mr. Lanazuki. And Mr. Lanazuki was manic depressive. And we had admitted him because he had run from Germantown, Philadelphia, down to Central Philly, which is about 20 miles. But he did this in his boxer shorts and no shoes. And this was in the dead of winter in Philadelphia. So this is not something an old man in his 80s you would think would be able to do. But he did it. And the police brought him in, and he didn't stop running around for an hour or so by the time I saw him. But when I saw him, he said, "Doc, who is that glowing guy in the corner there? Big bald guy." And I thought, is he seeing the same thing I'm seeing?